Hello and welcome to today's edition of Off the Press. I am Tokunbo Taiwo. Joining me to take a look at what the headlines in the papers are saying this morning is legal practitioner Daniel Odupe. Thanks very much for joining us. Good morning.
Pleasure to be here. Good morning.
It's good to have you on the program. Okay, so let me just run us through some of the papers that we have, and then we'll look at some of the headlines, and then we'll take them one after the other. So we've got today the Nation newspaper, we've got the Punch, we've got a Vanguard newspaper, we've got This Day, and if we've got time, we will also handle complete sports. But let's start with the Nation newspaper. There are lots and lots of stories, lots of headlines, but as you know, and like I always like to do, I like to start at the top and work my way down to the bottom. Let's see if we can bring that up on your screen, the Nation newspaper. Let's bring that on the screen and then take us through the major headlines. There we are, right there on your screen. We'll start at the very top, starting from the top left-hand corner. We've got DSS parades fake doctor for killing 15 patients. That story is on page 5. And underneath that, we've got writer-activist Molara Ogundipe dies at 78. That story is on page 43. On the right-hand side of the top of the Nation newspaper, we have 22 kidnapped suspect in police net. That story is on page 42. Distribution companies to match TCN expansion with $4.2 billion, page 11. And underneath that, we've got Buhari to NEC, focus on security. That story is on page 6. And in sports, we've got Igalo hopes for successful tournament, page 47. I'm sure we'll talk about the sports story later on during this sports segment. Okay, in the middle of the screen there, we can see on the left-hand side, we have military must act fast to boost soldiers' morale. And then to the right-hand side, we have Carey is NNPC boss as Buhari rejects tenure extension for Baru. Underneath that, we've got 7 senior managers affected in the shake-up. Okay, so that's the top of the Nation newspaper. Let's go all the way down now and see what the major headline is. And there it is right on your screen. Governors endorse the state police to fight criminals. And there's a number of subheadings there on the left-hand side. Push for new law begins. El Rufai defers. Sage urges caution. And on the right-hand side, a houseboy kills employer and mother who is 89. A very sad story there. Let's see what's available on the back of the Nation newspaper. Just the usual columns, the reign of fakeness, Shegun Bade guessing, and then hardball at the bottom, loonies on Lagos roads. If you want to find out what all of that is about, grab a copy of the Nation newspaper. Okay, let's go on to the front page and let's discuss the major headline. Governors endorse state police to fight criminals. So Daniel, let me start with your initial reaction to this story. What's coming to mind?
Oh, okay, so the challenge that we've always had in Nigeria is the fact that we the people do not always take ownership. You know, state police is something that is long overdue. There's no doubt that we need to change the security architecture in our nation. The current one is not working. We need to do something differently. However, I am not too excited that the governors are the ones pushing for it, because we know that, look, if you want something to last, if you want something to really work well, you need
Sorry to cut in, but who would you rather, push that forward? Since you said you're not happy with the governors.
Yes, I'm not too excited. It's good that they're on the side, but I'm just not too excited because you know the way they are. One of the challenges, one of the arguments against state police is that, look, the governors can hijack this. You know, that's a huge argument. You know, so that's not to say that everything that we should throw away the baby with the bad water. I'm just saying that I hope Nigerians, I hope the media will do a better job. Up to now, I've not really seen something really comprehensive in terms of educating Nigerians on the pros and cons and what they stand to gain if we introduce state police. That's my point, basically.
Do you not think they also need some form of training, because a lot of Nigerians are complaining about general police, let alone the state police as well?
Absolutely. I'm hoping that what we're going to do eventually will be something really comprehensive. We need to shake up the architecture. We need to do something fundamental. State police is definitely a step in the right direction. We must look at all the challenges that can come up as a result of this and make sure that we block those loopholes. I do not subscribe to we just adopting what's practiced in other nations. No, our situation is different, it's unique. We need to fashion out something that is unique that will cater for our own peculiar needs, really. So generally, a general shake-up, and that can only be driven by the people. That's my argument, really.
So you talk about, shake-up, you talk about architecture, I'm like, what do you think, or how do you think it can actually be done?
Okay, so basically, and that's why I said that all the stakeholders need to be fully involved. The media especially, the media.
No, what I meant is like if you have like any, how do I put it? Do you have like a strategic plan on what they should do, what the media should do specifically, or what any other parastatals in the state should do?
For example, generally, I've always, clamored for the fact that, look, I think that the relationship between the Nigerian people and the police is not good enough.
Okay.
For example, we have people serving their fatherland, every year, up to like 3 batches and what have you. There's nothing stopping us from, having some people serve with the police, for example. We need to engage with them. If you serve 1 year with the police and then you come out and do whatever, involve in whatever sector, the way you see them will change. We treat them like some sort of outcast, and then and when we need help, we cry to them when they do wrong way. A lot of things need to change. Some strategy. That's why I said that something peculiar to our own as
our own state as
then ensure that things get better for us as a nation.
All right then, thank you very much, Daniel. Let's move on to the next story now. Buhari to NEC, focus on security. Buhari has been talking about security for a long time. We haven't. Some people, in fact, some panelists that have come on this program have said that there's too much talk and little effort. So going by some of the things that he has said in the past. What do you say about this recent?
Yeah, I agree with the assertions of the panelists. If you ask me, there's been so much lip service, that has been paid to the issue of security. The government of the day has not come out to stamp its foot. For example, one major challenge that plagued the first term of his administration is the issue of the Fulani Herdsmen, and every honest Nigerian, every unbiased Nigerian will tell you that, look, the posture and the position of the presidency and of the government of the day has not been, sometimes when you are the president, you are the president of the whole Nigeria. You should not make people feel like some people are sacred fowls, or, in my opinion,
they should be firm.
They've not been firm, the posture has been, it's not back and forth. And this is basically lip service. The challenges are increasing on a daily basis. And things, fantastic, clear course actions are not being taken. This is just lip service, if you ask me.
Okay, all right, we're going to leave that story there and move on to our next newspaper now. So that's it on The Nation. Let's move on to the Punch newspaper now. The Punch newspaper also has quite a number of stories, but we'll go through what those stories are before we discuss the major headline. Let's see if we can bring that up on your screen, the Punch newspaper. There we are. We'll start from the top once again and work our way down. We're starting with CBN Forex intervention hit $42.4 billion in 1 year. That's the top story right there on page 33. And underneath that, we've got "Will Kick Killer Herdsmen Out of the Southwest." That's the Ooni of Ife. That story is on page 3. To the right-hand side of that story, we have "Keeping Your Children Out of School a Crime. Buhari Tells a Parent." That story is on page 43. Okay, let's look at the bottom of the screen now. We have the major headline. NECA, NACCIMA, LCCI fume as Buhari tells governors to raise IGR VAT. Yes, that story is on page 2. So that's what you can see at the bottom of your screen right now. NECA, NACCIMA, and the LLCI fume as Buhari tells governors to raise IGR and VAT. That story is on page 2. Okay, let's go to the bottom of the entire paper now. There's a picture of NYC core members, Batch B Stream 1 members taking the oath of national service during the swearing in of the 2019 Batch B Stream 1 in Abuja. That took place on Thursday. Okay, underneath that, we've got Boko Haram releases abducted female core member 5 months after. That story is on page 10. And there's like a number of stories at the very bottom there. So I'll just go with the last line of stories. We're starting from the left, working our way down to the right. On the bottom left-hand side, we have PDP set up panel to investigate members over National Assembly elections. That story is on page 10. Next to that, we've got domestic worker stabs boss to death 2 days after employment. Mother slumps, dies after seeing daughter's corpse. Page 4 and 5. And on the right-hand side, ASU opposes Nigerian professor sacking, detention in Ghana. That story is on page 19. Okay, let's start with the main headline once again, Daniel. NECA, NACCIMA, LCCI fume as Buhari tell governors to raise IGR and VAT. What's the likely impact that this is going to have on the public?
Absolutely negative, not so good. Unfortunately, if they've been performing up to expectation, maybe we'll not be so worried. But again, a state like Lagos, for example, Lagos has been surviving and thriving on IGR for a long time, so much more than whatever allocation they give from the federal government. But now, when you are giving a specific order to the governors to raise, IGR and VAT, it's a cause for worry, basically, because you're probably saying that, look, you not get as much as you used to get before and what have you. But basically, I think I'm just worried about the impact on the average Nigerian, because when you say that you increase IGR and VAT, it will impact on businesses. It will impact on the consumers of goods and services.
The economy and the rate of inflation as well, I would imagine, or not necessarily.
Absolutely, because the prices of things will go up, and because all these things will pass on to the consumers.
Exactly.
I mean, businesses will just do well to pass it to the consumer. That's what will happen. So I'm just worried that, I hope we're not, set for more challenging times, basically.
Technically speaking, what could be the worst that could happen in terms of the governor's side? Let's look at the governors now, because we talked about the people and how it's going to impact them, but let's talk about the governors. Is this a directive, or can they object, or can they object, or this is definite, once the president has it?
Object. It is not the president,
it's not set in stone.
Does not have
overall power
over the governors to say, look, you want.
So you think some states would reject this new raising of the IGR?
I imagine so, absolutely.
Okay.
I imagine so. I just hope that, because look, I've always said that governance should be done with a business mind approach, basically, because raising VAT, for example, is not the only way to get money for the government. There are investments, there are properties, there are things that could be done. You need to run a government as if you are running a business, so that that mindset. Unfortunately, we don't have it. We have a kind of situation where people just go cap in hand to get for the education, no effort on your part. You just are not being managed properly. State governments have unimaginable amount of assets that if properly managed, could bring in money for them.
If properly managed and if properly maximized.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on to the next story now. This is one story that sounds very interesting. Keeping your children out of school, a crime, Buhari tells parents. Okay, I can't wait to hear what you have to say on this, Daniel.
I believe Mr. President, is speaking figuratively.
Okay. So he doesn't mean it literally.
He's encouraging parents, basically, but unfortunately, I do not think that this will have much impact. What you need to do, for example, you need to encourage local governments to be more autonomous, so that the primary school, because constitutionally speaking, primary school education is really the area of focus for the local government. If I can't imagine last time. I can't remember the last time I saw a functional primary school owned by the local government anywhere in Nigeria. Since I can't remember the last time. But the way it used to be, shortly after independence, is that the local governments have primary schools that you could be proud of, and that's just the basic they could do. But unfortunately, because they've been hijacked by the state government, they are not able to do this. What I would have expected the Mr. President to do was to encourage autonomy. We talk about the regulation recently, trying to encourage trying to minimize how state government control funds of the local government. I would have expected that Mr. President would act more that ensure at saying autonomy for local government, so that they can take care of primary school education, for example. And with that, parents will have no reason, because I don't think that any reasonable parent would deliberately want to keep the child at school. It's either they cannot afford it, or the decision is just so bad. So I think it should be more actions and less words, if you ask me.
That makes total sense. Thank you very much, Daniel. Let's move on to the next newspaper now. We've got the Vanguard newspaper next, and it also has quite a number of stories as well. We'll start with the top of the Vanguard newspaper. Let's see if we can bring that up on your screen. screen. Vanguard Newspapers, number of stories. I'm just going to take the most important ones, I would imagine. Vanguard Newspapers, let's see if we can bring that up. There we are, Vanguard Newspapers. So we've got the two stories that are in the top right-hand corner of the Vanguard Newspapers. We'll start with enforce free basic education. Buhari tells governors. That's on page 4. Which we just recently talked about from the Punch newspaper. And then Oshodi, Apapa Expressway gridlock worsens as task team extend repair works on bad road. That story is on page 10. Underneath that, we've got with new GMD, shake-up looms in NNPC subsidiaries. That story is on page 19. Okay, the major headline is what we can see at the bottom of your screen right there. Insecurity, we need Fulani vigilantes in Southeast, Mieti Allah. And there's a number of sub-stories underneath that as well. Ohaneze Ohaneze will resist Fulani vigilantes in Igbo land. That's Umodo speaking. We're not against cattle rearing. Say Southeast governors, and it's a provocative agenda. Afenifere will make our opposition on state police known, governors say, and police bemoan a lack of personnel. All of those are detailed on page 5. Okay, so let's look at the bottom of the Vanguard newspaper now. Bottom of the Vanguard newspaper, there we are. We're starting at the very bottom. From the left-hand side, we have maintain status quo. Court again orders Ganduje and Emir Sanusi. That story is on page 13. Next to that, we've got federal government to prescribe Al-Majiri system, page 9. And next to that, we've got nice National Assembly leadership, PDP to probe voting pattern of members. That story is also available on page 9. And on the last story on the bottom of the Vanguard newspaper, Owando saga, Deloitte threatens to release detailed forensic audit report. That story is on page 9. Let's see what's available on the back of Vanguard newspaper. Sports as usual, but like I said, we'll discuss sports when that time comes. In the meantime, let's look at the main headline of the Vanguard newspaper once again. Insecurity, we need Fulani vigilantes in Southeast. That's Mieti Allah speaking there. Okay, your initial reaction?
Provocative. I mean, they've been in news since the advent of this administration. If you recall that, you will never witness this kind of statements on and on. You know, why, for example, President Gojanda was in power, but all of a sudden President Buhari came into power, and these are things we're talking about. That look, you need to be firm. You need to make people understand that yes, I am from your tribe, but I am the president of the whole nation. You cannot continue to make this kind of inflammatory remarks, and then this is absolutely provocative. If you ask me.
Okay. So, Ohaneze says they will resist the Fulani vigilantes in Igbo land. They will resist. Is this some form of tribalism? Do you sense some form of tribalism taking place here, or some kind of tribalistic tendencies taking place? Because I'm thinking, if they were not Fulani vigilantes, would the Ohaneze, would they...
Ohaneze is a socio-cultural organization whose main agenda is to protect the interests of the Igbo people. So yes, I would not have expected anything less. Because if you think about it, justly, not all Fulanis, are involved in any kind of criminal activities, but some of them are. We all know that some of them are. But unfortunately, I just do not think that making this kind of statement will help. If you want to do anything in a land that's not yours, you consult with the people, you engage them, you buy them to your side. I would have expected that before you've come out of this paper to say this kind of statement, you have Ohaneze on your side to say, look, we are peacemakers. We just want to make sure that we want to collaborate with the existing and all that. Maybe they didn't do that, and that's why Ohaneze is saying, look, we're going to resist if you try this. Yeah,
the way you've just said it makes absolute sense. Okay, police are bemoaning lack of personnel. Do you not think, like you just said, that they should have contacted Ohaneze in the first instance, that they should have also collaborated with the police?
Absolutely. Because that's the way to go about it. It seems they keep making all kind of statement that I'm wondering where's this coming from. It seems somebody just you are showing them in the background that you can do, and that's unfortunate. I think they should be put in a place. They should be made to understand that look, these are the kind of things that are capable of driving tribalism and insecurity in our nations. I mean, it's uncalled for.
Okay. All right. Before we wrap up on Vanguard Newspaper, let's quickly talk about this Ganduje and Emir Sanusi drama. You know, so the headline is "Maintain Status Quo." Court again orders Ganduje, Emir Sanusi. As I mentioned earlier, that story is on page 13. But let me hear what your thoughts on this.
Politics. But something like Emir Sanusi, he's not a novice. He's been in the game.
Exactly. So he knows
his onions.
Exactly.
So I'm not surprised. You know, it's interesting. You know, unfortunately, I don't know how far we'll be able to play this. You know, Ganduje being a governor, constitutionally speaking, he has more powers. You know, so but then they're in court. I trust the court to do the right thing, and you know, for now the court says maintain status quo. In other words, do not create new emirates until we determine the motion and notice. So let's see how that plays out. But it's going to be an interesting one.
Okay, you know, this is a case of Ganduje versus Emir Sanusi. I want to gauge, you know, who you would like to win.
Okay, I'm a big fan of the Emir.
Okay, okay.
And then Governor Ganduje has been in the news for not so nice things recently. So, you know, I do not think he has more high ground if you ask me. You know, there's some things that he's supposed to clear. You know, unfortunately, you know, he's on the side of the presidency. That presidency made that clear, you know, during the election campaign and what have you. But let's see how that pans out.
When you say you're on the side of Emir Sanusi, are you talking in terms of like the historical significance of the emirate, or you're talking about his competence and his ability to do the job?
Both.
Okay.
The emirate system has been one of the fantastic traditional system in Nigeria. You know, they've always tread carefully in terms of politics. Yeah. And Emir Sanusi, you cannot think. I mean, if you ask me, you make a fantastic president. And intelligent Fulani minds is outstanding. I love the mind.
Okay. All right, thanks very much. Let's move on to our next newspaper now. We have This Day newspaper next. Let's see if we can bring that up on the screen. This Day newspaper. Just a couple of stories, not that many as the other newspapers. So we'll start at the top once again. Sanusi tackles Kano anti-graft agency over fraud allegations. Says no money missing from Emirate account. That story starts on that page and continues on page 8. Underneath that, we've got OPEC NEIT hail Kyari's appointment as NNPC boss. That story is on page 49. And at the bottom of your screen, we can see the major headline there. Illiteracy breeds insecurity, says Buhari. Asks governors to prioritize education. Federal government to prescribe Almajiri system. NEC, banditry now new national security threats. Those are the headlines at the top of this day newspapers. Let's look at the bottom. I think there's just one more story at the bottom there on the left-hand side. Tributes as this day MD's wife Eniola Olaitan is buried. Bello says she was my angel. Daughter says guess heaven couldn't wait for her. And I think that's a picture there of the entire family at the Danes Court Cemetery in Wolverhampton in the UK during which I think was taken yesterday. Okay, let's see what's behind the usual columns once again. They're talking about the Fulani identity crisis. If you want to find out what that is all about, grab a copy of This Day in newspaper. Okay, the major headline, illiteracy breeds insecurity, says Buhari asks governors to prioritize education. Okay.
Yeah, step in the right direction, right statement, you know, right signal to the state governors. You know, education is so important. It's more than ever before. It's so important. You know, if education is well taken care of, insecurity, there will be no recruitment ground for people who are in trouble for Boko Haram, for example, and so education is definitely important, and unfortunately we need to do more than just ask them to prioritize education. We need to encourage them into, we just need to do more than that, much more than
that. All right, thank you very much. I really want to go into more details, but unfortunately we're pushed for time, so we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately. Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been good sort of hearing your thoughts and analysis on all the major stories. I've been talking to Daniel Odupe, a legal practitioner. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
All right, that's it on Off the Press, today's edition, but we're back on Monday with all of the latest headlines, with all of the latest stories on all of the national dailies, with more analysis with in-house analysts or legal practitioners, as the case may be, depending on the stories. We'll be telling you who they are when we next come back on Monday. Until then, I remain Tokunbo Taiwo saying have a great weekend.